Okay, so I'm setting up to do my review video, but this is the teaser because I talked to you on the phone and I said, come over here. So I've not actually done the whole video. I just kind of just tasted it and was working through notes. You've not tried it yet. We're warming up with the 130th.
Mm-hmm. Heck of a warm up, by the way.
Yeah, not too shabby.
I was just looking for some basic Shelfer Four Roses. He's like, I got all these LEs. I was like, oh.
As a so I was thinking about the, in my head, every time I taste them, I said, how's it compared to the most recent small batch select? Because I think the small batch select still has some good oak. I think it's got a really good flavor. But I was like, no, it is a little too youthful. So things that we have on the table that I can talk about, I got the 2022, we got the 2024 we're going to get into. We got the 135th, so the 2023.
Where did did you do like an end of the year for that last year, or like an end of year kind of ranking for you
of where it put?
Yeah,
I think it was on my top list.
So I think it ranked like third-ish for us last year. Like it ranked really high.
See where it ended up going. So I do this thing where and I don't think I actually communicate this to anybody, but I usually only put one thing forward. So like if I know there's a Four Roses single barrel that's better than the LE,
sure,
I'll almost always just leave the LE out and then put the single barrel in.
Okay, I see what you're
Even
saying.
though my categories don't allow for that.
Yeah.
I just am like, which I didn't do that last year, of course, because this was fantastic. But like 2022, 2021, I feel like there were single barrels of the year that easily outbeat it for me. The PS58 runs were in 2021.
That was a magical run. Like that I agree with.
2023. I can pull this up and see. By the way, this is Zach, Bourbon Kingdom. You probably already follow his channel. If you don't, I don't actually know. You just turn this off and go subscribe to the Bourbon Kingdom.
Normally, I'm sitting with my buddy Dave, but whenever...
This is my sizzle reel for audition for Bourbon Kingdom. Sizzle. It's a sizzle reel. It's a sizzle reel.
Look, Dave goes through about once a week where I'm thinking, can I fire him yet? But I still can't.
Four Roses 2023 was my second to King of Kentucky, which is always the unfair one to fall into.
So I think... So last year, if I recall, I think it went like for us... Well, what M10 last year won for us, and then I think it was Single Rick, then I think Four Roses, then King Kentucky. So kind of all right there.
Mm-hmm. This one I had, so 135th is, I won't spoil it, but 135th is a good warm up for this pour.
130th.
130th is a good warm up for this pour, the 2018 release. Mm-hmm. It is, for all intents and purposes, in the middle of like, it's not a bad LE and it's not a great LE. It sits in the middle.
I agree. So we were talking about this beforehand. I really enjoyed it when it first came out, and then the more, as I was telling him, like the more I drank on it, it's really good, but it doesn't stand out. Like there's not anything, like I can think of some other ones that stand out more for different reasons. And as I killed that bottle probably about a year ago with a buddy, he's like, "What do you like about it? What do you love about it?" I'm like,
yep.
It's really good. Like it really is. It's just, it's not.
So real quick, if you were to let's say, I don't know, it's like dating app or something like that, right? Like what you're sitting with this one. It's, I don't know. I don't do dating app. I don't know anything about it.
I know.
You don't either. Let me get a better analogy here. Let's say what is it? If you could change something about this, what would you say? Okay, it's missing blank, or I wish it had blank, or I wish it didn't have blank.
To me, and this is not in any way, shape, form shaming this or saying anything bad. It's like a great barrel strength, mm-hmm. And that's what it is. And to me, it's like a really great barrel strength, but it doesn't pop for an LE. Like if you're doing an LE, you want it to be special. Mm-hmm. Like you want it to stand out. Like the 2022 Roses, to me, the thing that stood out to me on that was that maple note. That maple note, I love that maple note. And I know that wasn't for everybody, but it made that LE stand out, and to some even special. To me, the 30th doesn't. Like the 135th, for example, last year's was just crazy. Everything roses that you want. Yep. Like the hardcore, this is what you want.
Yeah.
And that's why I like, and like I said to that.
I think my problem with the 130th is that when you, especially a lot of markets, you see the Four Roses barrel strengths. They have good age on them. 11, 12, sometimes
we're back
10,
to that, yeah.
10 to 12. Yeah, not always, but they were like 10, 12 years old.
Sure.
So you would expect this to have a little bit more oak presence. And a lot of the releases they have, I think the 130th just isn't. It's just very balanced. Like, and that's in sweetness and in oak.
Yeah, we're criticizing something that is very good,
Yes.
and we're criticizing something for doing its job.
Yes.
About being, I think what you said, it being balanced, it doesn't pop, it doesn't stand out in a crowd of, and we're big Roses fans.
Yep.
Like we are people who really, we're a little critical of Roses sometimes because we've had really good Roses.
Yeah.
Something else with me on age with Roses, I think more of that red fruit can pop on that. It's more of that juicier fruit can pop on that.
Yep.
And you don't get that in the 130th either. So,
And again, a lot, we say 130th, we've just last year had the 135th. So they have, even if they weren't going to change things up, just for the sake of results, there have been iterations since 130th. So anything that we're saying too, it really doesn't even matter. This was 6 releases ago, right? So 136,
totally.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, whatever. So what I'd like to do, you mentioned some stuff about 135th, about it popping. And so I want us to taste that.
Sure.
But first, in between, because of where your palate was with 130th.
Yeah, I agree.
And again, this is a little bit of a spoiler for, I would probably say, the other video. I want to hear your thoughts on this one next.
Okay.
Okay? You good in that same glass?
Yeah, I'll be fine.
Okay.
I don't have as a detailed, as beautiful as a palate as my buddy Brian over here, so it can be okay.
That's okay. My dad always said I had a face for radio, so you got to make it up somewhere else, right?
Hey, I did too.
Shout out to fathers,
Yeah.
and to those who also had abusive fathers. So, every once in a while when we text, sometimes it's not about bourbon. You're actually just giving me parenting advice, which is very good because I need to hear that because when you have a tumultuous relationship with a father, it is hard to parent yourself.
It is hard.
So
literally, as my wife and I were talking last night, parenting's hard.
Parenting is hard.
You can
and I
do
saw someone said
everything
if parenting wasn't hard, if parenting is not hard, you're not doing your job right.
Well, really funny story. I'm listening to a podcast and it's just about like struggles this, struggles that. It was really healthy because it's like anything worth doing is hard.
Yes.
Parenting is hard. All that fun stuff. So I hope that you all came here for some of that good advice and the 4 Roses.
I don't know that people came here for anything. If you look at my views on my videos, I don't think people came here for anything. They just randomly found this video.
Oh.
I'm gonna get the SEO of Bourbon Kingdom on this.
There you go.
Again, it's a sizzle reel, so we'll see how it goes.
Man, this is just so much more depth and richness to it on the nose in comparison to that 18. Now, how long? Let's be fair about something. How long has the 18 been open?
It has been open since I got it. It's been open a long time.
So it's been open for a while.
And what I mentioned to you before, we record and stuff too. The 130th is interesting because I think people don't talk about age after opening the bottles of Roses all that much, but the 135th I felt like did go down a little bit in quality, but not much. It has stayed the flavor profile that it currently is for a very, very long time. But I do think maybe it had a little bit more sweetness on fresh pop. Something like an Al Young is like awesome fresh pop and then goes really flat.
No, that's whenever we were talking about that before, that's a great analogy for that.
But the 20,
but I think that's why a lot of people. I think that's why a lot
is
of people
just
love Al Young.
killing it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, Al Young is only a great, especially with its current secondary prices. Al Young is the only worth it if you are going to rip it and destroy it with some people.
I know,
like very quickly. Yeah, this nose is fun. It's a lot deeper. I feel like you kind of gotta search for some of the things in there too.
Well, I was getting ready to say the stuff that I was talking about earlier was some of that fruit, and I don't really know any of the details of the bottle.
Well, let me say this because I have it right here. 31% of a 12-year OBSV. OBSV is the standard for Roses recipe.
Yeah, agreed.
23% 15-year OESK. I mean, OESK is fire, 15 years, great age mark. That's a pretty high percentage too. The largest percentage is 16-year OESF. So what wild card? That's the highest percentage, and then 7% of a 20-year OBSV. So in total, there's 38% OBSV in general, which is still the secondary component to 39% OESF. And the only thing I can think of, I'll talk about this in my other video too, is I think I'm searching for something that probably isn't there, but I feel like I get a little bit on the nose. There was a run of like 12, almost 13-year OESFs a couple years ago, that HW55 run that were like smoky and like really unique. It was smoky and oaky and like and leathery and like a very unusual profile. It was I thought maybe I'd find more smoke here, but I do get some.
So I agree with you. Whenever you were going there, the only other note I would add to that is a little bit of like a burnt caramel cream note to that, and there's a little bit of that kind of on there with the oak in the leather. I don't get as much smoke. That I agree with.
No, but it's like it would be smoking like a charred barrel sort of way, like kind of in a Calvin-y sort of way. You know what I mean? Like it's been marinated. There's a little bit of that. It's not quite toasted in terms of like how we put toast in a bottle, but there is a well seasoned oak kind of presence that's in there.
You know, we haven't had this open very long, but there was a little sharpness on there, which would indicate like a little youth, but it's kind of going away.
Yeah.
Like
that was the first
sitting there.
That's the first thing that made me think of the 130th to begin, is because there was. I even put in my notes already, like, give it 5 minutes. That's all it needs is 5 minutes, because it is a little bright and unbalanced on the nose initially.
It is. Yeah, I agree. In that nose, it's very full. It's very. I don't want to say it's simple, but it does what it's set out to do. Like it's not. Because I agree with what you're saying. You're looking for stuff that's maybe not there.
Yeah.
But I think what it does is it's got it.
Let's go ahead and taste this sucker. It's the palate that made me say drive over here right now.
Yeah, I was. Oh wow. Yeah, I was downtown, and whenever he's drinking it for the first time, giving me notes, and I'm like, screw it, I'll just head over.
That's right. So, without saying like tasting notes specifically, in my head, and coming off of 130th, I immediately say, this is 130th if you gave it more oak. Like, it has a lot of the balanced types of flavors. Granted, it has a lot of flavors that are very different.
Yep.
But it is like in terms of a sweet and slightly fruity, more balanced pour, it's only unbalanced by the fact that there's a hefty amount of oak that is in the middle palate and carries into the finish.
You know, it's funny you say that about the oak. So I was going to say, I agree with you about the oak. I do feel like there is more oak on that 135th, but it almost kind of drinks like a little bit more of a youthier version of the 135th, in the sense of where you have some of those bolder kind of flavors from that. I don't know the proof difference on it. This is...
I thought they were pretty close. This is 108, and this one I think is 108 point.
Okay, so they're about the same. But yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah.
I like that. I think what you said is correct. I think it's fun. I think it's a little bit lighter than what I would have thought on the nose. Like on the nose, I thought there was going to be a little bit more depth to it. But it has some really nice finishing notes to it. With that spice and that fruit on the back end of it that I enjoy.
You know what kind of reminds me of? It reminds me of like drinking a Mai Tai a little bit. Now hang with me. It still has some of like
I just had a great Mai Tai the other day, so let's go.
It has some acidity. It has some brightness.
Yes, I agree.
It reminds me of eating dried pineapple, which is a little tropical. Dried pineapple with maraschino cherry. We're not talking about Luxardo cherry juice. We're talking about maraschino cherry.
So you're saying like the pure cherryness of it?
Kind of like a cherry vibe. Okay. It's kind of sugary, and then comes in a bunch of oak. So it's a little tropical, not overly, but like it's got some tropical.
I wouldn't say it's like overly tropical, like what you're thinking of, like a tropical drink. But it's like you had something that's a little bit more earthy, and you mix a little bit of that fruit in there, and boom, there you go.
Boom, there you go.
No, again, this is without going in a ton of depth and not having a ton to pour, to be fair.
Yeah.
Very generous with what I got. That's excellent. I'm very happy. I told him this on the way over. It's hard to sit there and say it's going to be as good as 135th. I think 135th is one of the best ones they've done. It's probably, in my book, I haven't had every single one of them. It's probably top 3.
Okay. So, and yeah, without doing straight up comparisons, I personally was not a big fan of 2021. I think 2021 was the one with Q, and I thought it tasted like, I thought it tasted like it had Q in it. It was like a little more herbal.
It was
funky.
off profile a little bit.
It was weird. I didn't like that. The 2022 was fine, but I don't think I loved the 2022 either. The this one, I would say, again, without comparing, I probably like it, the 2024, better than 21, 22. The 2020 is the oddball here because, like, Fred Minnick, I think, had the best way of describing it because you know how he likes spices, and it is a very spice-driven pour.
Yeah.
And I very easily write that one off as not being a favorite, but there's another side of me that loves it for what it is. Yeah, so I still think of the last however many years, it is a very unique one. 2020 is probably objectively better than 130th. I think this one is like a better, This is like a combination of the 2024 is a combination of like the 135th and the 130th. But I won't know until I taste this 135th.
I think that's fair. No, I think that's a really...
there's a lot going on.
I know. It's like, well, I was getting ready to say, and the fact of the 135th, whenever a distillery comes out with any kind of release, and it's awesome. Russell's 13 batch 1, for example. That's such a great comparison, because the other Russell's 13s, for the most part, are really, really good. It's just we compare everything to that batch 1, and it's like not as good.
Yeah.
Same thing with this 135th. It's going to be hard for that Four Roses to compete with that 135th. I mean, you can just tell it on the nose. Like, that nose, that fruit that pops on there, and that richness that pops on there. So, like, you can almost taste, like, just on your nose, you can taste that texture.
Objectively, in terms of, like, intensity, saturation, 135th outscores on that level to the 2024, like, on both nose and on palate. However, there's some types of flavor to 135th I could see people not enjoying.
Oh, sure.
And they would say, like, someone who might be more of a Buffalo Trace drinker, there may have more of the low rye profile. Now, here's what's weird.
Yeah.
Again, I know that OESF is the lower of the ryes, but it is, I guess it makes sense. It is 2339. It is 62% E. So it is more of the low rye profile, and it drinks more nuanced and not complex.
Sure.
More like softly nuanced and balanced than 135th. I think 135th is better, but it does come with darker notes.
Well, yes, and I agree with you on that spice. Now, I'll say this though, with this year's, I think you get more of the oak influence from that. And I don't know how you guys are like within like the community here. The two biggest notes we always see that kind of turn people away is certain spice and oak.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty universal. But so there are things with the 135th with that spice, and there are things with this year's with that oak. Now, I love them. I personally love spice and oak notes. There are some oak that gets a little funky, I agree, but I am here for it. So to me, it works. It's just this 135th is still better. And it's like, but it's not better like as in like this year's is bad.
Okay. Now, real quick, I've been having since before you got here. I've had the 2024 sitting in this glass. Don't finish it because I want to save this for the video.
Sure.
But take a sip of this now that you've had the 135th, and going to the 135th.
Man, that nose is opened up too.
Going to the 135th from the 2024, I feel like it can in a lot of ways outscore it. But buddy, coming back to that 2024 from the 135th is pretty damn good.
Yeah, it's almost like night and day different whiskey. Hey, that is good. That is good. It almost like matures.
Yeah.
It really just matures and kind of grows up. That oak, I do think you still get some, maybe it's from that 135th, but I do feel like there is a little bit of some darker notes that come out on that now.
Which is, I think, welcomed.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's what you want. Like you want, at least that's what I want when it comes to older age whiskey. Like, I want some of that maturity and complexity. Like, do I love a one-trick pony or like a very simple, like I think Russell's 15 isn't as complex, but man, it's amazing for what it is, right? This shows a little bit more complexity just with a little bit more airtime. So that actually excites me then. That actually tells me that maybe at the end of the year, that can open up and turn into something that is not only competing for like end of the, whiskey of the year stuff, but just even whenever you're drinking it with, and you're wanting a little bit more of a complex pour.
So here's something, this is very interesting point.
And we're getting super nerdy with how
we are. I'm sorry, guys, but this is what, I talk a lot about Four Roses on the channel, and so I wanted to have someone else come and taste this with me. Again, I'll still end up doing my other video. There will probably be some crossover. There probably won't. This is a piece that will have some crossover and also not. Here's what's really interesting. Out of context, I think one of the things that people would say is a knock against Four Roses, it usually fails in blinds. For some reason,
it sticks out like a
for some reason, it doesn't.
But that's why that 2021
well.
did so well with people, because it wasn't as traditional Four Roses.
Well, here's what's really interesting about this 2024. I think the 135th did well in blinds or for people last year because it's such a strong personality.
Agreed.
But this is a more, I told you on the phone before you came that this had more of a like MGP front and then like a Four Roses finish. And I still think this is true, even as it's aged. That MGP seems to do well in blinds. I feel like blinded with all across the spectrum of pours, this will have more competitive power than other roses has had in the past.
So I'm a big believer that one of the strong notes in a blind for bourbon to do well is oak, and it can do you great stuff. It can do some terrible stuff for you.
Yeah.
But I think whenever you have a strong oak note, that's a really good base. It's almost like blending, right? Like whenever you're doing a blind, whenever you have something like that, I think it can really help you in a blind, and I think that. So I agree with you. Like I remember 2021, I remember having an oak note on there I really enjoyed. And it was a little bit off profile from roses.
Yeah.
This isn't that much off profile though. Like to me, I don't like there is some off profileness to it, but it's still like I know I'm drinking roses. Like at the end of the day, I can still get some of that, and just from just re-drinking it right there.
For the reasons I like some of the other LEs, like I like this a lot. But not for the same reasons I like some of the other LEs.
Agreed.
Like the 135th I liked because it gave me the old oaky, a little bit drying characteristics. Some of the things I liked about 19. 19 was just like a dusty in the glass.
Sure.
Love that. This is not that profile, but I like it. I tell you, I feel like the one thing that could make it stand out more is if it had a little bit more proof to it. Because it is so, again, we're talking about it being balanced and elegant. It will be. It is 108 proof. It's not high by any means. It's not low by any means. But if it had a little more proof, I think it could maybe strike like a little harder.
Where I think, which this is actually higher proof than last year's.
By 0.2. 108.2
That 135th punches. Like it can give you a knockout punch and it can take a punch. Where I do agree that on this year's, if I was only critical of anything, I agree. It's not quite as punchy. So
that's good.
It's really good. I would be very excited to get it. I mean, everybody and their mother is going to come to Kentucky for the release.
Yep.
So, there's going to be a lot of them out there. And I think they did an excellent job. And it's very, very hard for a distillery, it doesn't matter if it's one of the big six or not, to come out with a hitter and then to follow it up.
Yep.
And I think they've done an excellent job of that.
Yeah. That's all we're going to have. Again, I would think I might drop this just because, like, unedited, just to put it out, just for us to do whatever.
Easy.
But I will still end up following up probably afterwards with a formal review. This was super good. I'm going to thank Zach for coming over and trying it.
Oh, no. Thank you,
Bourbon Kingdom. I'm going to thank Bourbon Pursuit because Bourbon Pursuit gets samples. And
they are the real goat.
They're the real goat. And then I get lucky enough if I get the chance to try them. They know how much I like roses. They let me try these. I try and be very modest with how much I taste and get as much information as I can on that. So, man, that's fun. Hopefully it's informational for you guys. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in.